One of the things that fascinates me about working very large scale and in public spaces is that I'm actually thinking about individual viewers almost like individual publics. Even though something may be very big or monumental in scale, I'm really thinking about the experience of a kind of intimate exchange that individual viewers have with the artwork as well as with the surrounding space. In a lot of my public artworks, I often use reflective materials, and I often think of my works as being figurative. This is a kind of way of imagining the public as the figurative element.
For you, conceptually, where was that birth from, to think about implicating the figure through the mirrored material?
It connects to a lot of things. It connects to a lot of ideas of the intimate and the immense, and the idea of the individual in society, and these sort of micro and macro understandings of scale and of one's role within a larger framework. What this artwork mirrors in terms of the studio practice during the time that it was being developed was a very sort of like quiet introspection. This entire project was basically developed, fabricated, installed from beginning to end during pandemic time. I worked very closely with Camber Studio, based here in Brooklyn.
How does your landscape that you move through kind of inspire you as an artist, as a person?
I'm not making literal landscapes. I'm not really looking at traditional notions of the landscape. I'm kind of using the word as a sort of foil to think about what else happens. And so I'm asking myself, you know, where am I? Where am I in this place? What happened here? Who lived here? What's covered up? What's visible? And in this way, I always say that landscape's often about what you're not seeing or what's not being given visibility. In this neighborhood, where I'm so familiar because I've lived here for over 2 decades, one of the things that I was very interested in was the kind of elevated site that the terrace provided. And I was thinking a lot about the organic growth of ivy that covers so many Brooklyn buildings, where you have, you know, a thoroughly urban setting, and then you have these moments of nature sort of like penetrating it and sneaking in and just sort of like making itself very known. And so the piece takes sort of the language of this tributary growth, this kind of meandering line, or this ivy that finds a point and makes itself up the wall of the building and becomes so big that it becomes a canopy.
And so that's what influences the title Paradise, Parados?
Paradise is a word that comes from Old Iranian, and what it means is walled enclosure. It means an enclosed garden, basically. And the word paradise is understood as meaning a space of elevation, a space that is elevated. And so it was the perfect way to look at this site, which is enclosed on 3 sides by walls. So in many ways, it is like a kind of indoor garden or an outdoor space that has these components of interior and exterior. And the word parados is an ancient Greek word which refers to sort of this ramped entrance into the side of a theater. The wall that the piece is installed on is quite literally the side of the theater. And I love the idea that visitors, theater goers, but also anybody from the street that would enter the space and see the piece from street level and come up to experience would understand it as something that you move through, right? So you walk under the space, you walk under the piece like a canopy, and it frames the doorway of this lounge area that we're sitting in, almost like a proscenium or like a draped entrance.
Can you talk a little bit more about movement, you know, because BAM is known for performance?
The piece is not the object or the materials that make it up, but rather everything around it. And the piece just functions almost like a mirror or like a barometer to the urban activity all around it. It creates a kind of distorted reflection of everything the piece will look, very somber. If it's a sort of overcast day, if it's a bright day, it will be very dynamic. The wall that's across from the artwork is an important part of the artwork in that it is like literally a kind of light show of caustics bouncing off the wall when the sun is hitting it at certain angles. And this is, a really important part of the concept of imagining that the artwork itself is like a kind of performer.
And my last question, how do you feel that it's up and that it's real?
I think one of the things that's really satisfying is that, as all these big buildings are going up all around us in downtown Brooklyn, that there's a thoughtful, intervention by an artist that becomes a permanent part of that landscape, and that isn't just, an exhibition that comes and goes. Ultimately, I think that experiencing artworks that are thinking about place and where we are gives us a very unique opportunity to look at ourselves and to think about who we are in relation to where we are and how we got there. Artworks in general that are effective, they put us in situations where we're able to see ourselves in things that are not us. And I think that that is a very important component to understanding ourselves and therefore being able to understand ourselves in relation to one another.